Welcome to the Havilland Aircraft Museum. This exhibit here, which weighs about 3/4 of a ton, is a genuine Rolls-Royce Mark 25 Merlin aircraft engine. It's actually from the Second World War and was the starboard engine of a de Havilland Mosquito. The Mosquito was HJ719, built in Hatfield in 1943, and was a night fighter intruder version of the Mosquito. Very similar to the FB6 that we also have here at the museum. And so this particular engine was the starboard engine of that plane. The plane was flown to Boscombe Down, where it was evaluated, and later it was handed over to 418 Squadron, Royal Canadian Air Force, which was based at Ford Airfield down in Sussex. You can see from the artist's impression that it was actually painted black on the undersides with the camouflage on top, and that was because of the night intruder role which it was going to perform. We've also got some photographs of some of the crew that flew HJ719 with this particular engine. One of the photographs shows a gentleman in a sheepskin jacket, and his name was James Forrest Luma, nicknamed Lou Luma. Lou Luma was an interesting character. He was actually from the US, from Colorado. He snuck across the border into Canada, learnt to fly on tiger moths, of course, and subsequently joined the Royal Canadian Air Force, where he was posted to 418 down in Ford. Lou Luma and his navigator, Colin Finlayson, flew a number of missions, in fact, nearly 30 missions at one time. And Lou Luma is credited with being the only US ace Mosquito pilot. That is to say, he's responsible for downing more than 5 enemy aircraft. One of his first kills was a Messerschmitt 410, which was shot down near Worsdorf on the 21st, 22nd of January 1944. The Messerschmitt 410 itself had just refueled at its local base. However, the pilot had forgotten to switch off the landing lights. Moving back to 719, it was painted up with THU, U for uncle, and you'll have noticed from some of the photographs that it actually had some nose art on it. And this was quite unusual, but for the Canadians and Americans, it was fairly common practice. The nose art on HJ719 was Moonbeam McSwine. Moonbeam McSwine was a character from a cartoon series called Little Abner. She was a gun-toting, cigar-smoking, good-for-nothing, red-headed hillbilly. So, pretty useful character to have as a nose art on the Mosquito. Lou Luma himself flew HJ719. He would have been at the controls of this very engine here. Subsequently, he handed it over to Pat McGale and his navigator. Pat McGale and his navigator were then called upon to do a very different operation compared with the intruder missions, because this was the middle of 1944. In the 6th of June, D-Day had happened, and on the 11th of June 1944, V-1 flying bombs started hitting London. The role of 418 Squadron was changed. Their role now was to find and destroy those flying bombs as they came across the English Channel. The technique they used to attack a V-1 was known as Operation Diver. What it involved was, knowing that the V-1 was flying at about 3,000 feet, the Mosquito itself would climb up to 5,000 or so. Once the flying bomb had flown underneath it, they were able to enter into a dive, gain that extra speed advantage, enabling them to catch up with the V-1 flying bomb and open fire with the cannon and machine gun. We know from the report from the operations and from their own account of what happened that they swooped down behind that flying bomb and opened fire, and they think they hit it because debris came back and hit the aeroplane. And debris from that flying bomb hit this starboard engine of HJ719 of Moonbeam McSwine. As a result, this engine caught fire and it was no longer serviceable. So not only is it flown during wartime missions, it's been hit by shrapnel and it's caught fire. The thing about a Mosquito is you can fly it for some distance on only a single engine. So they tried to regain height, but unfortunately the port engine also gave out and had to be feathered. They were now left with a Mosquito with no engines working at all. However, they were able to get over land. And at the very last minute, Pat McGill and his navigator bailed out. According to his letter subsequently to the Canadian Pension Fund, he reckons he bailed out at about 800 feet, which is pretty dangerous, sprained his ankle. His navigator got out successfully as well. HJ719, however, smashed into the ground and was lost completely near Upper Beeding. If we fast forward to 1995, the wreck was actually rediscovered and the engine and other parts were recovered. This particular engine itself was recovered about 20 feet underground in the mud in Upper Beeding. It was handed over to the museum and in a very sorry state, caked with mud and with rust. However, what they were able to do after several years' worth of restoration is actually restore it to a point where the crankshaft turns over, the pistons move, the valve trains actually work, and you can see a working Merlin engine in front of you. So let's have a look at this aircraft engine actually working. The Merlin engine had twin magnetos. We're going to engage the starter motor and you'll be able to see the engine begin to move. This is an engine that started life in 1943, and 80 years later you can actually see it running over. And as an exhibit, it's absolutely fascinating and a tribute to the brave men who flew the Mosquitoes during the Second World War. I hope you found this interesting, and I'm sure you'll be interested to see this engine actually turn over. Do check out our website, check out when we're open, come and visit the museum. You can see this engine on display today and you'll be able to actually see it turn over when we do a Merlin demonstration. See you at the museum.